We're interrupting our scheduled program to take you live to the campaign trail of election 2016.
Defiance against Bill Shorten and are in open defiance against our strong border protection policy framework. We know that the Greens every day are yapping at Labor's heels. We know that Labor has done a preference deal with the Greens, all of which shows that Labor is going weak when it comes to border protection. Today we find out that Labor will remove one of the three major pillars of our strong border protection policy framework by suggesting that they would abolish temporary protection visas and by proposing to permanently settle about 30,000 people who arrived here illegally under Labor's last watch. Labor is not serious when it comes to our strong border protection framework. Labor is not committed. The coalition has a strong and clear track record when it comes to protecting our borders, and we have a clear and unambiguous commitment to maintaining our strong border protection framework if re-elected on the 2nd of July. Happy to take questions. Well, I completely reject that proposition, The Australian government is working closely with the state government in South Australia and with the administrators when it comes to IAM. Our advice from the administrators is that the Whyalla steelworks are not at any immediate risk and indeed that there are a number of purchasers lining up to purchase relevant business assets. Now, we are going through an orderly and methodical process. We are engaged and we've commissioned a review. If the review makes relevant recommendations, what we've said is that we would work with any purchaser to help facilitate access to a loan facility of up to $100 million to essentially to facilitate a successful transaction through the Export Finance Corporation. Now, we've of course done a lot of work to support IAM. We've brought forward about 1,200 kilometres worth of railway track upgrades from Adelaide to Tarcoola. We have strengthened the anti-dumping framework. We have abolished the carbon tax. We have exempted the emissions-intensive and trade-exposed industries like steel producers from the application of the renewable energy target. 2 points in relation to Labor. Firstly, if Labor was serious about supporting emissions-intensive manufacturing in Australia like steel producers, Bill Shorten would come out today and rule out the reintroduction of a Labor green carbon tax. And secondly, Labor is just making one unfunded spending promise after the other, and unfunded spending promises before an election cannot be delivered after the election. We already know that Labor has had to admit that the deficits would be bigger under Labor every single year of the budget forward estimates period. Every single year of the budget forward estimates period. They've already walked away from a whole series of past promises that they've made, like the promise to restore the school kids bonus. Labor just cannot be believed. We are working in an orderly fashion with the state government in South Australia and with the administrators, and we are doing everything that we can appropriately do to support the ongoing operation of that business.
Why did the Finance Department increase the reimbursement for communication software between 2014-15 and 2015-16?
Well, obviously these sorts of decisions are made from time to time, and as you would be aware, relevant support to ensure that members of Parliament can adequately provide services to their constituents is made available to all members and senators from all parties on the same basis.
Is it a coincidence that your Finance Department then approved an increase so that the exact amount of Parakila's feedback software would be covered without MPs and senators having to dip into their own pockets to cover some of that cost?
Well, this support to access software is available to all members and senators on the same basis, and I've heard relevant comments by Bill Shorten yesterday. The interesting thing is that certainly as late as 2014, Labor members and senators were making payments in relation to their software support for equivalent services directly to the Labor Party. So I guess Bill Shorten today will have to explain the arrangements that the Labor Party had in place then when he was the leader of the Labor Party, and he'll have to explain what precisely the arrangements are for the Labor Party today.
You previously referred questions on paraphilia to the party organisation, but their statement last night didn't say what the $1 million of other amounts that go back to the Liberal Party from paraphilia are. Are you really happy to go to this election with this hanging over your head and your opponents calling this a scam? Well,
Parkelia is a company. Parkelia, obviously, like any company, has to comply with all relevant laws. My advice is that they do comply with all relevant laws and respond to any relevant inquiries by relevant authorities in a timely fashion, and that is what I would expect them to do from here on in. And I'm very confident that that is what they will continue to do from here on in indeed. Malcolm Turnbull is leading a strong and united coalition team which is putting forward at this election our national economic plan for jobs and growth. And of course what we're doing in this election is working very hard to gain the trust of the Australian people, to continue to implement our plan for jobs and growth, to continue to implement our plan to secure the successful transition in our economy to a stronger, more diversified economy. The matters that you raise are matters that ought to be considered should we be successful at the election, after the election, and they're of course entirely matters for the Prime Minister at that time.
We've got jobless figures today. Have you got any insights to those? And economists are looking for 5.7% unemployment rate, which is the same 3 months in a row. Would you be hoping for a better figure?
Well, Colin, as you know, I have maintained a very consistent approach to these things. I don't comment on data before data is released. What I would say in relation to jobs figures more generally is that clearly under the coalition, employment growth is stronger, much stronger than it was under the previous Labor government. Over the most recent 12 months period, employment growth has been running at about 3 times the rate that it was under the last Labor government in their last 12 months in office. And the unemployment rate, as you say, currently at 5.7%, is well below what had previously been anticipated. So, what we say to the Australian people is that Australia continues to face a series of external risks. We continue to face some global economic headwinds, and it is very important at this time, as we work and continue to work through the transition from resource investment driven growth to broader drivers of growth in a strong and more diversified economy, that we continue to implement our plan for jobs and growth. The alternative is a bunch of people led by Bill Shorten, which doesn't have a plan for the economy. They just have a plan for higher taxes, bigger deficits and more debt, and all of which would weaken our economic outlook, which would cost jobs and hurt growth. So what we're saying to the Australian people, this is not the time to take risks. This is the time to stick with our plan and to stick with the team that is implementing that plan. I thought it was a bit unfortunate, I've got to say, and clearly the timing was particularly unfortunate. All right, thank you.